Hello everyone. In today's session of Visual Jforex, I will be continuing with the demonstration of algorithm development using the linear regression. Let us head to the Visual Jforex board, which has been developed by the Dukascopy Bank SA to make our life easier. In a prior session, we had done the work so far. Here, I have done the instrument subscription where the default instrument has been set for the USD JPY. Then we also checked for the position amount. There should not be any prior position open or any pending order. To make sure that is the case, the second variable has been defined at 0. Then I added the linear regression blocks with parameters set for the hourly time frame, and we also got the historical candles for looking at the price action, how the price action has unfolded in last couple of hours. So the shift value has been defined for the first block at 1, and for the second the look back period is at 2. And to pinpoint the exact entry point, we will also be using the 10-second candles. So here, so far so good. And now in today's session, we will need to add further conditions. We will also need to take the help of calculation expression for setting the condition that there should be minimum volatility, and only after that, if the conditions are fulfilled, the execution of the trade should happen. So here, I would like to remind that the requirement is that last hourly candle should have closed above the linear regression, but the prior candle should have closed below it, and there should also be minimum volatility. Now, when it comes to defining the volatility, we mainly rely on the ATR, but since this series is made up of only one indicator, so we will not really be taking the help of ATR, but instead of that, we can look on the average ATR values, and usually during normal times the ATR range for the USD JPY is around 50 pips. So 10 pips or even below that should be good enough. 10% of ATR can be considered a representative value, and if there is that much move or more than that, then I think that should be good enough. And to make sure that the trend is on our side, we will also be looking at the linear regression values. Only if the linear regression values are going up, and then there is also buying momentum in the immediate term, we will be going for the fresh trade execution. So here I will like to give you some example. Now, as you can see here, there is enough of volatility. The price is rising from 104.53 to go up till 104.63. That is more than sufficient for us. And also the price candlestick has closed below this linear regression setup. So this time around, the execution might have happened, and for the sale side, we will have to look for the circumstances where the linear regression value was going down, and at the same time, the selling momentum emerged and the candlesticks moved lower. So let me see when that happened. I guess no, this will not fit the bill. And usually, once our algorithm is ready, we run the historical test and see what is the profitability or how the trade execution might have unfolded in the real-time environment. So I am also finding it difficult to figure out. I think this here the sell trade might have been executed. We have the prior candlestick closing just little bit closer to or maybe above the linear regression setup, and the linear regression value are also on decline. So let us now head back to the Visual Jforex board. For setting the condition, we will need to take the help of calculation expression. So I go to the components, mathematical component, we will add, and as I said, for defining the volatility, the required value can be set as per our intuition or observation. And for this, use the JPY. I think 7 pips should be good enough. So what I will do, I will define the new variable, create new variable. We will name it minimum pip difference, which should be 7. Let us add this, and on tick, last tick instrument pip size. So whatever is the pip size for USD JPY, that will be taken into consideration. And then simple thing, you just have to do the calculation as per Excel A1 into A2, and whatever is the result of the calculation, that is going to be 7 pips for USD JPY pip difference PD, and we will save the value, which will come handy for setting up the condition. And we will also need to look at the difference between the opening value and the closing value, and for that we have to do the calculation for two scenarios where the buying momentum was there when the closing value for the candlestick was higher compared to the opening value. So in this kind of scenario, we will have to deduct the opening value from the closing value, but when the selling pressure is there, we have to deduct the closing value from the opening value to make sure that difference is in positive, the output is positive. So what I will do is carry out the candle 15's calculation. It is in auto created. So here is historical candlestick 15. Now we take its closing value. Whenever it has closed higher, we can get the values in positive. So A1 minus A2, and again we need to create a new variable BCD, okay, by candlestick difference. So far so good. Again we need to do the same for sell side, and there I will have to do the inverse of what I have done in last calculation expression. Here we deduct the closing value from the open value. So candle 15, candle open, and then closing. Okay, A1 minus A2 SCD. Let us add. Let us add this. These parameters will help us make sure that enough of volatility is there, whether we are going for the buy side trade or the sell side trade. The conditions should be conducive, and because of that only we have to make sure that optimum setup should be created. Now, as I reminded you while explaining on the chart, that prior candle, the candle with the look back period of 2 should have closed below this, and for the buy side, that is the requirement. For the sell side, the requirement is inverted. It should have closed above the linear regression, and for that we will be taking the help for this hourly candlestick with the look back period of 2. Okay, so far I think now we have to add the multiple action. the logical block, and we will leave some space just in case any further indicator block or calculation block needs to be added to this Visual Jforex board. So here we will leave out some space. Now coming to defining of the conditions. And default instrument, record is 2, shift 2, candle 16, and for the buy side we need the candle 15's closing value to be above the linear regression value, and for that we have to take its candle closing 15, okay, and it should be above the linear regression line, and that is line 10. And for doing the comparison for candlestick 17, I will also need to add one more linear regression block with the shift value of 2. As I said, we missed out on one block, and it's good that we have left out some space. Moving averages, and here comes the linear regression. Okay. This needs to be defined for the hourly time frame. I'll change this to hourly. Shift is going to be 2. And then we join it back. Alright, now for doing the comparison of candlestick 16 with the linear regression value of this newly defined block, which is line 24. Again, I take some logical components, if else statement. Alright, here comes if, and this is going to be in the second variable, second input value, and for first input value I will take candle 16's closing, and as I have said while defining the condition, we have to make sure that candle 15 candle close is above the linear regression value, while the candle 16 candle close is below the linear regression value. That means only this hour after due correction the fresh buying momentum is there. And other condition for volatility, now we take into consideration this calculation which we have carried out earlier. We will need to compare the buy candlestick difference BCD with the minimum requirement. It should be higher. And let me join this. It is going to be less. Okay. And comes the condition of defining the relation between the linear regression values, line 10 and line 14. For the buy side, these output values should be greater than line 14. I will join it as the first condition, that is the first requirement for execution of the buy side trade. Okay. So in today's session, we'll leave the work here. In tomorrow's session, we will add further condition to pinpoint the exact execution and also complete the sales side. Okay, and I will add this. Let us create this link. And to make sure that flow is there, we will color code this. Okay. Now you can see that it is uninterrupted. So that's it for today's session of Visual Jforex. I hope you have been able to understand the development so far, and I would be more than happy to resolve any query if you have any. So let me know in the feedback. Thank you all for joining in. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.